by, she calls herself Gabby Bernstein. And what was our theme for 2023? Being your authentic and true self. So this book, well, I just finished all of it last night, and let's start with, for those of you who have read through the book, what spiritual wisdoms or traditions or quotes did she mention? Do you remember? Did she ever quote the Course in Miracles? Yes. Did she quote Kundalini Yoga? Gave exercises about some meditation practices there. She spoke to Deepak Chopra, Oprah, and Wayne Dyer. Rumi, Marianne Williamson. Is she a center for spiritual living? I don't really know. She mentions a yogi, so we know that she has done lots of spiritual work, and she shares personally much of the work that she has done. And of course, New York Times bestseller. And although before I saw this book, I hadn't heard of her, she mentions that she was a part of Deepak Chopra's worldwide meditation. So obviously, many different spiritual paths creating a quilt, which is really a lot what the Center for Spiritual Living is, based on the science of mind philosophy. But of course, even Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, you can't copyright truth. Truth is truth. And Dr. Ernest Holmes spoke to the fact that he wasn't creating anything new, but he was a synthesizer of information and did an excellent job of bringing together many different philosophies, religious thinkers. So when was Dr. Ernest Holmes alive? Do you know the time period? Okay, he was born in 1887. Think about that, before the turn of the century in the 19th century. And he died in 1960. So think about the things that were happening in history at that time. And I want to speak to Dr. Ernest Holmes because I believe Gabriella is an example of some of the things that Dr. Ernest Holmes was saying while science of mind, religious science, being open at the top as consciousness evolves. There's intertwinings happening here. So between 1887 and 1960, this was a time of prolific translation of spiritual texts. There is a lot that was brought, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Buddhist translations, Tibetan monk translations. Translations were proliferating because, of course, the printing press, more books could be printed. So there was a lot of East and West conversations, connections. Things are beginning to become more global, you might say. Now, I love this one. So you think about Ernest Holmes' lifetime. What was Einstein's lifetime? Anybody know? Letting you think about that. They were only 9 years apart. And shoot, I may have forgotten my... That's all right. Believe it or not, Ernest Holmes and Einstein actually had dinner together. Isn't that fun? As you know, going back to, and I'll come back to some of the things, Einstein, of course, was saying that science without religion was like meaningless, and religion without science was blind. And of course, if you've read any of Einstein's quotes, there is some mixture of what we're discovering in science with Einstein at the time that Ernest Holmes is studying mysticism, metaphysics, and mixing the sort of psychology, philosophy, and science of the times. Now, what else was starting to become more prevalent was, again, because of the printing press, the transcendentalists, who are Emerson, Thoreau, Alcott, Whitman, and of course, the mystic and a leader in studying mysticism and knowing mysticism was Emma Curtis Hopkins. So the influences on Dr. Ernest Holmes at that time. Now, Ernest Holmes was a voracious reader from the beginning. They said when he was young, he just read a lot. And he also constantly questioned. So he was raised in a Christian, in a Christian family, but he was always asking the priests, "How do you know there's a hell? I don't think there's a hell." "Well, it says so in the Bible." "Well, who wrote the Bible anyway?" He was always questioning. He was always curious, which makes sense why he wanted the science of mind philosophy to be open at the top. He literally said that we will evolve, and what we know about consciousness and how our consciousness evolves, science of mind should therefore follow. And then wherever you find truth, it belongs to everybody. You can't patent it or copyright it. Truth just is. So, where is Center for Spiritual Living today? I don't know the real number, but there's over 400 Center for Spiritual Living communities around the world. Many other science of mind, religious science organizations, not just the Centers for Spiritual Living. And both during the summer as well as at the latest ministers' conference, the ministers and practitioners have been talking about how do we stay relevant? What does that mean? Well, when you read Ernest Holmes' language, he uses the language of he. We might use more instead of mankind, humankind. In other words, language changes, does it not? I remember when I went to Switzerland with my grandmother who had not seen her family for 25 years. And she was literally speaking to them, and the younger generation would say, "What's that word?" And the older generation would say, "Well, that used to be the word for whatever the new word was." And I was only in 8th grade, and I was like, wow, language changes during the generations. And so that's one aspect. Our language has changed. What about that science? My daughter told me just the other day, my niece has 3 boys under 3, hands full. And my niece's oldest son is only 3 years old, and he was telling his aunt, "Yes, TT, every morning I say my affirmations. I am brave going to school. I am kind. I am love." Isn't that, oh, wow. Affirmations at the age of 3, going into scary places like school. And we're all learning how to do affirmations here. Are you starting to get a sense of the trajectory? Yeah. And how about psychology and philosophy? Do you think any of that has advanced? Yeah. So consciousness does continue to evolve, and more of us know more of the truth, which I forget what I was reading. It said something like, the bright ones are usually the first one to leave a certain religion because religion gets behind the times. I don't think science of mind wants to do that, right? So, I don't have the book yet, but the Centers for Spiritual Living has already offered and will be offering again, and I want to invite you all. There is a book called The Four Pivots: Reimagining Justice, Reimagining Ourselves. There will be a free book study via Zoom, I believe. I know it's online. It will happen Tuesday evenings starting January 2nd, January 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, and it begins at 4 p.m. And as I mentioned, CSL practitioners and ministers, at least a handful here. I know Crystal and Randy and Kat have already been a part of that. And we're going to join the Centers for Spiritual Living in January so that we can be a part of the conversation. So, for the bookmark for 2024, what's the first book? The Four Pivots. And yes, I know, Sherry, I have not mentioned that yet because I just made that decision within the last 10 days after talking with practitioners and different folks. And again, I think this is a good time and a good opportunity to spiral up together. So we'll get the book here so you can get it here or get it online. And again, it's a free book study, and I'll put that out in the e-blast and ask you to join. And then we'll make that the bookmark, and so that means for those that will be speakers in January and February, we will be speaking to the Four Pivots so that we can all evolve our consciousness together. All right. So, anybody recognize this book, Love and Law? One of the main themes of Ernest Holmes was love. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. Love points the way. Law makes the way possible. So where do we begin? In love. In Gabriella's book, The Universe Has Your Back, Transform Fear to Faith. Now, when I first read the title, I thought, well, the universe has your back could sound like separation, as in, I'm walking down the road and something has my back. But she speaks to oneness. She's clear that we are all one, that indeed there is this hidden power, call it what you will, God, higher power, universal source. And the place to begin is practicing your connection to that hidden power. Truth is truth. Meditation, spiritual mind practice, affirmations, beginning with where you in your heart have a desire to lead the way, and then to use the law to make it possible. She speaks about awareness, becoming self-aware. Sounds easy, right? Anybody got it down yet? Of course, going deeper, understanding who we are is a forever opportunity for each of us, should we choose to go there. And she uses some examples in the book of, here she is, having speaking to others, being a spiritual teacher, having written many books, practicing, and still found herself moving into control. I know what I want, and now I'm going to try to make it happen. Which then what happens? We get in the way. So the balance between I am becoming, first of all, will I do my spiritual practice? When I do my spiritual practice, I am connecting. And when I'm connecting with my higher source, am I open to listening? Which Reverend Christine spoke about in our meditation today. Am I willing to really listen? And then in that listening, discover where I need to let go, where there are beliefs holding me back, or something she speaks to very clearly is fear in the way? Many times we make decisions and we don't realize that fear at the subconscious level has already had us going a particular direction because There's fear over here, but I haven't really looked at it or seen it or understood it or spent time with it because it's scary. But we just finished Atlas of the Heart. And what would Brene Brown say about fear? It's a messenger, right? Bringing what causes fear closer to you. And the way Gabriella speaks about it is begin with love to look at that circumstance or what it is that you have fear. Come from the eyes of love. And when we can move ourselves to come from the eyes of love, then no matter what we see or who we see, we have the eyes of love. Regardless of what's happening in the human dimension, we become conscious and aware and live with love being our spectacles, what we're seeing through for each being, for each circumstance. The two chapters that stood out to me in this book is the one on judgment. She very clearly described how judgment separates us. And when I was doing my spiritual practice based on some of the things she was saying, it's like, oh yeah, it's so quick to label things. I was in a meeting at work. Something got said that triggered me. And then I realized, oh, I guess that was a judgment. I could let that judgment go and then just listen with love. I don't have to have an opinion. I don't have to have a reaction. I don't have to have anything. I can just be in love with that person stating what they believe or what they know. So there's of course always practice, always practice. Let love transcend all doubt and limitation. And Marianne Williamson says, when we give time to a quieting experience, we have a different life because we have a different nervous system. What does this speak to? Mindfulness. Was there mindfulness in 1960 when Dr. Ernest Holmes made his transition? Not like it is today. You hear many people say, I'm going to yoga. So there, in today's environment, continuing to be the weaving of all of these spiritual wisdom pieces for us to be able to use as tools to bring ourselves closer to that connection of love or higher power. In the back of the book, of course, I have lots of dog ears. I liked that she said, I'm deeply inspired by your willingness to grow, to heal, and to transcend fear. Stepping into your light. You are my hero. And I hope this book feels like a big, huge hug, holding you tightly and reminding you that the universe has your back. So I have cards that are quotes from the book. I'm going to ask Leanne and Peggy to please pass those baskets around. And I just want you to take a moment in yourself and say, I know that I am going to pick the divine right card for me. So while that's happening, I'm going to, of course, I got to choose mine. I know that wasn't fair. But considering my father's situation, I felt that I find a deeper meaning and personal growth amid the discomfort. Obviously, when you think about life and my father's transition, you know, it's like a head dive into what is the meaning of life and how do I want to be loved when I show up. Um, I asked my mom yesterday what my dad was doing, and my dad loves politics. So for the third time, he was watching the Gavin Newsom DeSantis debate. And all I could say was, if that's what he wants to do, then I will be in love and have my earplugs in. Bruce Lipton. How many of you remember Bruce Lipton? You know, he's a chiropractor, a scientist, a cell biologist. And in his book, Biology of the Belief, he says, you may consider yourself an individual, but as a cell biologist, I can tell you, you are in truth a cooperative community of approximately 50 trillion single-celled citizens. I love that quote, and I'm going to keep this quote because based on the war in Israel and Gaza, it is possible to become a cooperative community of 50 trillion single-cell citizens, and so it is with the world. So it is with the world. And, you know, the thing that won't be advertised is, for instance, during the days that there was a truce, how many lives were saved? We don't know. But we know that there were people working to create that space and time to allow for those to move during that time. And the news won't be saying how many people may have been saved during that time. But I continued to use that in my own mind as forward momentum from that space. That we need to recognize that while the news will constantly show you how many have died, when there is a truce time, and I realize that that time has passed, but I can hold to the presence of knowing that there was a time that lives were saved. And what else can I continue to do to, again, know the peace is at the core? And Dr. Carolyn's meditation by Yogananda also stuck with me. And so as I continue to bring my own consciousness into the presence of how we can live together in peace, in harmony together, that is important work for you to do. And I know that many of you are already doing that work. It doesn't necessarily show up in the news, but I want to say thank you for knowing that truth and doing that work. All right, well, let me ask, how many of you got the perfect affirmation? Oh, I have more. Peggy, I have up here in this purple basket that Julie gave me, there's another box, so please make sure everybody gets one. You can call this an early Christmas gift because it is December 3rd, right? Would anybody like to share why their card was perfect for them? Michelle first, and then Julie. Okay, if you raise your hand if you didn't get a card. Right here in the middle. Okay. All right, Michelle, go ahead while they get their card. Beautiful. So for those online, if you didn't hear her, Michelle constantly is aware and conscious of miracles. And her card, I can't do the whole quote, spoke to the mindful moments where you recognize miracles are happening. Beautiful. I love that. Julie. You know what? I have another microphone, and I'm realizing I could use that if Scarlett make that. Yeah, thank you.
There are family dynamics going on.
Speak to.
Sorry.
There you go. There you go.
There's a reason for this. There are family dynamics going on that are new and interesting and challenging. And this says, "Thank you, universe, for helping me see beyond the limits of fear. Thank you for expanding my perceptions so that I can see what is of the highest good."
Beautiful. Beautiful. Somebody else like to share? The perfect card you chose? Mo?
My card says, I surrender to a power greater than me. I really like to be in control, as some people know, and organize and have it my way. And anyway, so I need to remember this.
So you're taping it to your forehead?
No, this way.
Yeah, so you can see it turned inward. Beautiful. Yes, reminding. When I was in the park for an hour and a half yesterday, I was watching the leaves fall, saying, they just allow that to happen so easily. Anybody else? Jenny?
Oh, it's going to make me want to sing when I got a mic in my hand. My card says, the universe works fast when I'm having fun.
Excellent. Yes, sometimes we get way too serious, don't we? She makes a very clear thing. If you're not having fun, it's going to be hard to demonstrate because you're not in joy. Dr. Carolyn.
I think I got one that is challenging my practitioner license.
Okay. Wow.
Well, people come to us and they want us to pray for an outcome.
Yes.
That's what it says. Instead of praying for an outcome, I pray for the highest good for all.
Mm. 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 Now, you and I know, because we've had conversations with practitioners, where people are saying, I want to change in my life, but I'm not going to change anything. You need to make things out there change, right? That's what I think that card also says, that sometimes it's like, I am trying to make this certain thing happen, but we need to let go and let spirit change the situation because you've changed your perspective, and then see what shows up. Yeah. Was there somebody else? Vicki?
The other day, at the end of meditation, something came to me. There were a lot of emotions swirling around inside. And it said, what it says on this card, I choose to learn through love.
Mm.
And so that's a reminder for me to anchor into that space and that place.
Beautiful. I choose to learn through love. Mm. Yes. All right. Yes, Shannon. Yes. Well, yes, people can then see you.
This is important to everybody in here. There's nothing sexier than my authentic truth.
I wondered who was going to get that card. Nothing sexier than my authentic truth. That's a perfect one to end on because it lined up perfectly with be your true, authentic, sexy self. All right. So you're welcome for the gift. That was very fun. And I love hearing from all of you. It helps to, connect us all. One last thing. Where is it here? All you have to do is choose love. Spread light. And know that the universe is in and has your back. Namaste. All right. So I'd like to welcome Kenny back to the stage. This time he's going